Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate in the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30 p.m. local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania with our DATV Experimenters Night, and good evening to everyone. And we've started on time this time, so and we're not having a forum night in December, so it's an ATV night. And good evening to Colin in VK, Bronson, and also Ken in New Zealand. Greetings to everyone on the chat, and please drop your comments and questions in the chat. Now, on the just before we get underway, I'll just do the acknowledgement of country. I wish to acknowledge Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional owners of the land, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the knowledge, the culture and hopes of Aboriginal Tasmania. Now, on the weekend we had a big celebration, end of year barbecue, and then into the afternoon we went into a working bee, which saw a whole lot of people beavering away all over the club rooms. We put in a whole lot of new CCTV cameras. Our shack and our workbench just next to where we're holding the ATV studio is absolutely immaculate, and all tidied up, and we have a new camera. Well, that was a bit of anticlimax, wasn't it? We have a new camera in the club rooms, and this particular camera, in fact the white balance needs a little bit of work on this camera, because we've suddenly gone to, I have a bit more colour in my skin, but this particular camera is fully controllable from the desk. And it's about a 20 or 22 zoom. So if you need to see whether I've had a shave or not, then you'll be able to well and truly see that. So that's the new camera, and of course we can direct that and direct it to anywhere. So if we've got something at the front that we're showing or whatever, we can zoom in on it to a fantastic degree. So that was one of the things we did on the weekend, and a real asset to the ATV studio. And in fact, we've got room for at least four or five audience members in the studio now, instead of it being full of crap. So the weekend was a big success. So we've got a whole bunch of things today, not only the cameras, but also APRS, we've got space weather events, we've got electronic projects. We've got AR Magazine. We've got all sorts of things. Without further ado, I will now go to this. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Let's try that. Oh, that's better. Would help if Justin knew how to drive the mixer. Now, I showed this a little while ago. This is, if I take the top off, this is the Byonics. Now, Byonics make a whole range of wonderful little foxes for amateur radio direction finding and all sorts of things, and they make a whole lot of APRS bits and pieces. This happens to be one of their APRS boards. It's called the MT-2001. Let me zoom in a bit more here. That's better. So this MT-2001 is a complete TinyTrak 3 APRS unit. So this is the little microcontroller that is programmed up with TinyTrak 3. If you're used to APRS and using TinyTrak 3 and 4 units, they're little units that do all of your TNC and your packet radio commands, etc. This particular board also contains, on the other side, and I can't show you at the moment, but because it's screwed in, but on the other side has a full RF transmitter, 2 meter transmitter, and it's a 2 watt 2 meter transmitter on the other side. You can see, if I turn it over a little bit, there's a board over here, which is, and if I turn it over, it's a dead giveaway. What pokes out the top is a GPS panel, phased array panel antenna. So this points up to the sky and grabs a GPS signal. And you can see on this board there's a little button cell just here that stores the almanac for the satellites where it's last done a scan. So this particular GPS unit is plugged into the MT-2001 and supplies the GPS, the NMEA stream into the APRS, the TinyTrak, so that it knows where it is, what altitude it is, and a few other bits and pieces. And it can then transmit that out the 2 meter transmitter here. Out there's a little SMA on top, and I have a actually a couple of antennas that I use for this particular unit. Now, in the bottom here, you'll probably, those that are astute with LiPo batteries, there are two 18650 batteries in here. So a pretty decent power supply of 8 volts. So they're in series, and then there is a little balanced charger board just here, and you can see there is a power socket out the side where I can charge those batteries. So this particular unit, if I switch this on, you'll see a little bit of activity on the LEDs. If it's flashing, this little green LED is flashing, it's looking for lock from the GPS unit, and eventually you can see there's a blue light on the GPS unit. Eventually, once it gets lock and it's done its survey, this starts flashing and the green LED stops flashing, and you're ready to go. It's actually got lock from the GPS, and it'll start transmitting at about that point out the SMA connector. So that's it's a Byonics MT-2001 all complete APRS unit, TinyTrak and transmitter all in one board. It's only 2 watts, but as I say, only 2 watts. We'll just put the top on that and we'll put it over here, because if you put even just a little quarter wave whip antenna on the roof of your car and have that on I had this on the dash, you can see here's Hobart, and my son went for a little drive with me, and you can see I've gone from home, I've gone down here, we've gone down here, we've done some he's learning to drive, so we did some parking some parking tests here in Lena Valley, and then we went off and we went across the Bowen Bridge and then back around the East Derwent Highway, back through here and then across the Tasman Bridge, and then back home again. And so even with 2 watts, we've got a digipeater here, and I think a digipeater somewhere out here. I think I might be right there. And then there's one down in Kingston, a bit further down. But even with just these 2 digipeaters here, which picked up most of this track, with 2 watts and a quarter wave whip antenna on the roof, so a decent ground plane formed by the roof, it was getting pretty much every time it beaconed, it was being picked up. So there's a bit of something about the bridge. We didn't beacon at the end of the bridge, which we may have beaconed at the end of the bridge, and it could have been behind the Queen's Domain. So that's the Queen's Domain hill would have shielded both of these digipeaters. So that's explainable. I suspect it did beacon, but just wasn't picked up by anything. But so that's the MT-2001 Byonics. Now, I did have a look on the Byonics website, and I noticed that they are out of stock. But I'm sure they are going to get more of these in. But nice little units, 2 watts. I have put this in a backpack with the. I have a signal stick antenna sticking out the top of my backpack. Get a few funny looks, but you know I get funny looks all the time, so it doesn't matter. It beacons out and gets picked up by a variety of bits and pieces. I do put a little ground plane wire on the outside just to provide a little bit of counterpoise for the bit more than just the box. A little bit of a counterpoise on the box. But that's a little portable 2 watt APRS transmitter, all in one board. From Byonics, MT-2001. This is version 1.4. I think that's the latest. And it's got a little socket, little 3.5 mil socket, a 3.5 millimeter socket, multi-pin socket there that you can plug the programming into and program the TinyTrak. It programs up exactly like a TinyTrak. The interface looks exactly the same. The only thing different is you actually put in a frequency for the transmitter. It realizes it's an MT-2001 and gives you the frequency field, and it just works and does really well for 2 watts in a little unit. I was thinking for our equine endurance events, if we had enough digipeaters around the place, you could probably give one of these in the backpack of a rider and do that. And we have done that in the past with a camelback, a modified camelback with an APRS transmitter in it. And an antenna that sat on their safety helmet. So there you go. Anyway, yep, I agree with that. It's a hill, David, and it's VHF line of sight. So hello, David. Hello, yes. That's a little APRS experiment that's going on. Now, there was a wonderful article that was sent to me by Rex VK7MO, our resident. Now, let me go here and transition. So, now, yesterday's spaceweather.com, fairly well-known website that a lot of people frequent. Yesterday there was a wonderful story called "Solar Storms Are Driving Farmers Crazy." Now, Tamitha Scove, who is Whiskey X-Ray 6 Space Weatherwoman, who is the Space Weatherwoman who gave us a great presentation at the Tassie Hamicon, gave talked about and had a few slides of where the precision farmers, so this is farming where they are using GPS controlled equipment to plant, to harvest, to plough, etc., on farms. And the space weather event of May 10, 11, 12, where we had fantastic auroras everywhere and all of that sort of stuff, some of the analysis of that particular event and how it affected particular things is starting to become available. And this article is one of them. And you can see this is the auroras that were happening, Northern Lights over Elaine Ramstead Cousins Beet Farm on May the 10th, 2024. And you can see they have a picture here of Crooked Rose in Iowa. So this is in Iowa. So this was pretty low down on the North American continent. So auroras were seen way down lower latitudes, and this is the effect of equipment using GPS to plant. In this case, I think these are beets at the very beginning. Plant beets during that particular space weather event, and you can see the rows are quite crooked. They're certainly not straight. A little bit of that is to do with the contouring, but a lot of this is to do with variations in GPS, and I'll show you some of those variations in a minute that Andrew Klelocuik sent through this afternoon. So, and this is May the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and this is the sort of equipment that is being used to a beet defoliator. This is an example of massive hardware thrown off course by solar activity, and you can see there are they're either cameras or they're GPS antennas, or maybe that's the GPS antennas either side. But anyway, you can see that G5 event on May the 10th, 11th, and 12th caused a fair bit of concern in the farming industry all over the place that uses precision farming. So they're relying on GPS signals to make sure that they don't. They plant straight so that they can then harvest using harvesters, but also the fact that they don't run into fences and they don't, they don't run off course or all sorts of things. There's comments in here that some of the machinery that was operating during it seemed to be possessed. Now, if you remember the Interstellar, the movie, the very start of that movie, there is GPS guided farm equipment on a corn farm that is going a bit berserko because of events that are coming from the sun. So that's now what I'll just flip over here. What Andrew Klelocuik was able to do, he took this is the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and let me zoom in here a little bit. See if I can zoom in, make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so the red line is the Hobart Magnetometer measurements on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and then the blue line is the Kingston GPS measurements. Now, I assume this is the Australian Antarctic Division's GPS measurements. So, comparing the two of them, and this scale here is in meters, so the distance from the reference by meters. So the reference, which is the magnetometer, and the variation between the magnetometer and the actual GPS measurements at a known location, you can see it's varying up to 10 meters here, but then we head into, and the magnetometer starts to vary quite a bit, a huge amount. This is the nanoteslas scale from the magnetometer. So that's 0, there's minus 500, there's plus 500 nanoteslas. So Teslas times 10 to the minus 9. So small variations, but significant variations. If we go across, if we go into the 11th, absolutely huge variations up to, and we're talking up to 15, probably 15 meters difference, and then huge variations in the magnetic field. And there's one peak there, dynamite peak, that peaks up at minus 400, and then down to about 500. So pretty incredible excursions when there is very little in the way of excursions. And then we go into the tail end of the event on the 12th, and there was some variation in the magnetic field, and then things start to settle down, and you're down in the sort of the 5 to probably 7 meter range, variation range, which you could put down to system noise and all sorts of things. So significant amounts of variation in GPS data coming back. So and a huge thank you to Andrew for doing that analysis and passing it on today. That was excellent. Now, the other thing about the event, there happened to be a bit of a coincidence. Happened here. Murray VK7ZMS sent me a link to a video, and the video was from the AUSNOGs conference, which has been held just recently. Now, AUSNOGs is the Australian Network Operators Group, and they meet semi-regularly, and these are the people that actually run the subsea cables, run the networks around the country, look after the internet coming into Australia, all of the various parts of the network ecosystem. Now, Murray sent me a video that was put on by Bevan Slattery. Now, if you're in the networking industry, you know Bevan is a legend in his own very, very big lunchbox, and has done all sorts of things. Very much involved with subsea cabling, fibre between countries, fibre around Australia. He's got some huge projects going on right at the moment, which he talks about in the video, and I'll post the link in the video description. But one of the things that Murray pointed out was at about the 19-minute mark in this particular video, he talks about on the 11th and 12th, the 10th and 11th and 12th of May, surprise, surprise, they had a huge variation in those boxes. So they monitor all sorts of things to do with their fibre cables under the sea, so that they can hopefully predict failures and be able to do preventative maintenance and all sorts of things. And so what they started to see on May the 10th and 11th was these huge variations in voltage. Now, the subsea cables have repeaters in them. The repeaters need to be powered, and the way that they power them is they inject anything up to about 15,000 volts, depending on the length of the cable. 15,000 volts at about 1 amp. And they feed one end with a negative voltage and they feed the other end with a positive voltage, and they take into account how much cable there is, how much loss there is, how much the repeater amplifiers use, and all sorts of things. They do all those calculations, and they monitor those voltage levels at those various repeaters, so that they know if a failure happens, they know where it is. It's between these two repeaters, which means it's X amount. They can then do time domain reflectometry and all sorts of smart stuff like that, and find out where these breaks are. But they started to see these huge variations in voltage on May the 11th, 10th, and 11th. And he actually showed this particular picture. I screen grabbed this from his presentation, and so. This is, and they didn't know what it was. They thought it was maybe an amplifier failing or something failing. or some sort of shunt fault where the waters, salt waters got into the cable or whatever else due to a fault or something. But when they did the analysis, they realised that, surprise, surprise, it correlates exactly with the space weather event that we had. And it is a big, long piece of wire from one continent to another that was picking up these magnetic effects and causing these variations. Everything came back right again. And, yeah, it was just absolutely... it just showed another bit of our infrastructure that's affected by space weather, even though it's under the sea. So I thought that was a fantastic example of space weather and what it affects around the globe. And I'll post that particular link in the video description. But absolutely fascinating. I just the stuff that's out there is just off the show. Now, what are we going to do now? We're going to the latest of Amateur Radio Magazine, the WIA's flagship magazine, arrived in mailboxes around Australia. Let me zoom out here and go click. Now, this particular magazine is focused on the Cyclone Tracy, and there was a real amateur radio response to Cyclone Tracy when it happened back in 1974. So Christmas 1974, I remember as a child sitting in front of it, lying in front of the television, which is what I usually did for way too much of the time, or at least that's what my parents told me. And watching everything unfold with Cyclone Tracy up in Darwin, and just absolute devastation. So there are 4 articles in here around Cyclone Tracy and the amateur radio response to Cyclone Tracy. But when I opened up the magazine, I went, oh, okay, I'll look forward to reading about Cyclone Tracy. However, the very first article that was found in here after space weather, I've forgotten that we'd put in an article about the Reese display at the Australian Antarctic Festival, and so that was held in August, the end of August, and it's come up pretty well. Here's Warren VK7 Whiskey November, and lots of kids all playing with our Morse key Morse decoders. Here's me with a couple of young people all wanting to do their learn Morse code and decode and all sorts of stuff. And we got a audience member now. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
And then we've got Warren over here making a contact on our little QRP station, and I think that might have been the contact with the ALARA contest, which features a little bit later in the magazine. So I thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool. And then it goes into a little bit about AO7, the oldest man-made space object still working in space. Absolutely fascinating pictures in here, and the most fascinating one that I found was this one. This is AO7 left, so the one that's got the Australian flag on it, piggybacked aboard the launch vehicle. Now, when they say piggybacked, they mean it. This is literally fixed with explosive mounts, so they can push them off into space, on the side of the launch vehicle. And then there's a big cover that obviously goes over that. But when they say piggybacked, they mean piggybacked. And all the inside workings of AO7, everything's hand soldered and put together. Here is the CMOS memory for the Morse code beacon. Now we're talking 1970s here, so that's an awful lot of memory back in those days. We go through the Cyclone Tracy articles, absolutely fascinating. That's a bit scary. There's a fairly substantial steel post, a sturdy steel power pole, just twisted out of all proportions. The AR magazine at the time showing the amateur radio response. So yeah, fantastic. Now, contest calendar in the middle of the magazine for 2025. There is Arduino controlled signal generator from 10 kilohertz to 54 megahertz, and of course is Louis De Stefano, VK3AQZ, who we featured last DATV with his Baycom modem that I built. Uses a little DDS, little 8 kilohertz to 160 meg DDS. Absolutely fantastic. I use that in the mag loop controller. Now the other... here we go. The ALARA. There's Jenny Wardock, VK3WQ. And if we look down here at the 44th ALARA contest results, there's Peter, VK7KPC, who absolutely shined. And then there is myself with 5 points, 5 SSB points, Linda with 292 SSB points, and Warren with 5 SSB points. Now, both of those points were gained at the Australian Antarctic Festival. We made a contact with Linda. So there you go. Anyway, fantastic magazine and lots of good reading, all about Cyclone Tracy and the amateur radio response to Cyclone Tracy. So there you go. Now, what have I missed? No, I haven't missed anything. How are we going for time? We're doing well. Now, I put in the description that we were going to have a blast from the past. Guess what I found in a pile of papers that I had? My 50-in-1 electronic projects kit. Now, I have no longer got the kit. Can I just say, I have no longer got the kit, but I've still got the manual. And absolutely fascinating read, and brings back lots and lots of memories. There were lots of things in here, like a 2-transistor radio, a transistor diode radio. There was a code practice key. There was code practice key for 2. There was a light operated Morse code key. There was a telephone, a radio telegraph, etc. So I have a feeling my father probably sought this one out because it was very radio focused. And you can see this is the description. Here's the transistor diode radio. If we zoom in here, each of these little points, connection points, are little springs on the transistor. The 2SA8, the transistor. The diode was 5 and 6. There was an antenna, a capacitor, an inductor. There was a variable capacitor, a resistor. There was a crystal earpiece, and there was a transformer and a solar cell. So it was powered by the solar cell, not the battery. And each of these points were little springs that you used to put wires into. So this was the wiring diagram. If we go down a bit here, you go from 16 to 1 to 7 to 2 to 6 to 5 to 10 to 49, and then you magically it would all work. Ha ha. Now, talking about our code practice sets, earlier tonight we have to congratulate Jim VK7JZ, who did his first on-air CW contact with Tony VK7 LTD, and then we did some Morse code practice with him in between the 2 rooms on 2 meters CW. So there you go. And Ben in the studio was also helping him practice his character recognition. So there you go. I love it. CW makes a comeback. Now, a little bit later, I got this one. Now, I was lucky enough to have a Tandy's store just up the road from me. Tandy's electronics store. And this happened to be a kit, and I think this might have been in the throwout box, in the throwout basket. And I went, oh wow, that's just like my other one that I probably wrecked by that stage and pulled apart. So this was a bit of a radio focused one. You had a radio, you had the broadcast coil, you had the variable broadcast capacitor, you had an impedance transformer, you had the battery, you had a Morse key, a little spring Morse key. And this was a whole lot of projects, very similar projects. Similar arrangement, you had all of those were little springs and you connected the springs up. Here's the germanium diode radio, the germanium diode and transistor radio. And there were 10 projects that you could do. The transistor amplifier, etc, etc, etc. Morse code oscillator, here we go. The key, you keyed the battery into the transistor that was a little oscillator. Little impedance match for your crystal earpiece, your high impedance crystal earpiece, so that was another thing that was with the with the 50-in-1 electronic projects kit. I'll just go back. Someone. Okay. Oh, we've got David, Ron, hello Ron, and Mark. I assume that's FMAC maybe. Hi TW. Hello Mark. Yeah, it's I can't believe that we've got. I actually have kept them and I found them. I'm sort of sad that I don't actually have the item anymore. But anyway, I'm sure they're still about out there in storage areas and attics and whatever else. Anyway, now, the big news. Big news. SG Labs. Now, SG Labs are in Bulgaria. And they have just released a 5 gig, so a 6 centimetre, 5 gig transverter. Very similar to the 9 centimetre and the 23 centimetre transverters in form factor. And if I turn over the page, you can see it's 2 watts, 2.2 watts at 13.8 volts in, about 1.35 amps, 1.4 amps. This is what it looks like, and there are, I know Hayden's got his, and I have 2 wending their way to me. One's going to be fixed with the 9 centimetre looking at the mountain as our passive reflector, and the other one's going to be on a tripod and a grid pack for field day. This is what it looks like. Now, the normal size. This is the normal size of the transverters. The power amplifier at the end takes up a little bit more, so it's a little bit longer than normal. And the power amplifier, that's a 2 watt 5 gig power amplifier. And then you've got your RX and your TX or RX TX SMA on one, or you can switch this, or RX TX, so you can separate them. The 12 volts in, the IF SMA, so it goes off to your IF rig, and then a status LEDs here, and then a programming socket. You need to program the LO using a PC on these, which is a little bit different to the other transverters, but not insurmountable. It goes through how you program it. But the SG Labs 5 gig transverters. I have a couple of X 5 gig Wi-Fi grid packs. So wire antennas with the 5 gig feeds on them that I intend to use at least initially and see how they perform. And if they perform okay, then we'll go with that. If not, I'm going to have to find a better antenna for 5 gigs. But we intend to try using the mountain as a passive reflector on 5 gigs, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Certainly 3 gigs, 3E398, which is what we use on 9 centimeters, is absolutely fantastic. Pointing at the mountain, We've got from Kingston, Belrive, Lena Valley, South Hobart, Lena Valley, a couple of locations in Lena Valley, and it is perfect copy all the time on 3398. It's a talk around town frequency. So absolutely fantastic, and I hope 5 gigs is the same. We may need to GPS lock at 5 gigs, go higher in frequency. Drift is an issue, so we'll see how that goes. All of those transverters are GPS lockable, and so you put a 10 meg GPS disciplined 10 meg signal in, and you've got a pretty reasonable super stable microwave transverter. So now space weather. Space weather, there is one warning for space weather right at the moment, which is HF fade out warning. It's a pretty low R1, R2, I think, for the next couple of days. So that's about it. Now,
that's your forecast.
Oh, the forecast. Okay. So solar activity seems to have dropped dramatically from recent peaks. Are we over the cycle peak and heading down again? I hope not. Too early to say. Daily average sunspots numbers this week sank to 120.1. Predicted solar flux is 175 on December the 6th to the 8th, and 170 December the 9th and 10th, and 175 December 11th and 12th. So that's now. And 205 for December the 13th to 17th. Predicted planetary A index is 8 on December the 6th and 7th. On December the 8th and to the 12th it's 10. 8 and 5 on December the 13th to 15th, and 8 on the 16th to 18th of December, and 12 on the 19th and 20th, and then back down to 5 on December the 21st. So it doesn't sound too crash hot for Christmas. So, okay, and we've had a few fluctuations, which he talks about. There are a few CME little minor coronal mass ejections, but they didn't rate terribly highly. So
that's
very good.
K7RA from rec.amateur.
Now, Can I just say, this is coming via packet radio. Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of.
It's a news group.
If people remember what news groups are.
News group posting, yeah. Who remembers what news groups are? If you do, put it in the chat. And you used to get news groups on the packet radio network, and you used to log on to the bulletin board system and religiously read those news reports, because that was the internet of the 1980s. So, VK4CZ, okay, joining on the train trip home. Be here for a good time, not a long time. Okay, well, we're near the end. I just want to do some reminders of what's ahead. Now, Reese has set its foundation training and assessment days. They're on the website. I won't read them out. We are starting our foundation license training days and assessment days on February, the 22nd of February. And then the alternate months, every alternate month is a standard advanced and regulations assessment day, and that starts on the 29th of March. So for those dates, let our learning organiser, our Reg, VK7KK, know if you want to come along. And we've sold, the last couple of Wednesday evenings, we've sold a couple of foundation manuals, so it looks like people are spending their Christmas swatting up on foundation license manuals and getting their foundation license in the new year. So very good. Now, just a reminder: there is no week's night on Christmas night. Sorry.
Damn. What am I going to do with myself now, Justin?
It falls on a Wednesday night, and Christmas happens to be on a Wednesday night. So sorry. I know I've got no stamina. I've got no. by the end of Christmas Day, I'm going to probably be asleep. So yeah, there's nothing on that, but there is one next week. Then there won't be one, and then we're back into the end of December. There's one on the end of December. There's one on the end of December. There'll be one more in December. And then we go into January, and there will be throughout January. Yes, Bronson the cat. I need to pull my finger out and get myself a license. You do. And have we got a deal for you? And can I just say, assessments are nothing. They're free. You don't have to pay a thing. It's only when you pass and you need your call sign and you need a recognition certificate, it actually costs you a little bit of money, one-off money. You don't have to keep renewing your license. Mark, has anyone got parts for an FT707? Well, there you go. If you got parts for an FT707, let me know and I'll let Mark know. Okay. Now, there is something in January the 19th, 11 a.m. Humongous car boot sale up here. We're going to fill up the compound with pre-loved treasure that can be redistributed, if you know what I mean. And the thing that Reist is actually doing is we are selling collapsible antenna masts. Aluminium collapsible antenna masts.
I'm going to take 2.
8.1 metres and 5.4 metres. So we've got a long one which is 3 segments and a shorter one which is 2 segments, and they're 8.1 and they're 5.4 and they're 44mm tubes. 44mm tubes, aluminium tubes. So yeah, they'll be for sale, and we'll have sausage sizzle up here, and you'll be able to buy lots and lots of pre-loved junk. No, pre-loved equipment. No, that we can redistribute to the amateur population in southern Tasmania. So there you go. If you want to come up and sell, it'll cost you $10. That's all. And whatever profit you make is yours. That's it. So and there'll be a sausage sizzle up here as well, so you can buy a snag and buy some nice stuff. All right, that is your blooming lot for this week. We kick off again next week, and then it's Christmas. Woohoo! So next week I have some AI Christmas shenanigans. So what could possibly go wrong?
I've got a fun story after this.
Okay, all right. So we'll catch you next week. Same time, same bat frequency, same bat channel, and with some Christmas cheer. 73, and we'll catch you later. This has been VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our DATV Experimenters Night. Cheers.